This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. The podcast features conversation for musicians of all types and genres, a curation of expertise intended to help all musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. Greetings, my sweet listeners. It's Robonzo. This episode of the Unstarving Musicians Podcast features a conversation with an up-and-comer from Nottingham, England, Lynz Crichton. I discovered Lynz on Twitter by way of some mutual Facebook connections. Such a tangled web. Intrigued by her current social marketing campaign and her music, I jumped at the chance to bring her on the podcast. Lynz has a great story. She had a full-time job, took time off to be a full-time mom, and now she's reconnected with her love of music and songwriting. And with a little help from some Facebook friends, she's finding her way within a new breed of music artists who are learning how to build a following online, and she's sharing the love that is her music along the way. And get this, she lives in a rural community. However, she's busy performing, making plans to record her second EP. She was recently recognized in a noteworthy songwriting competition, in fact taking first place for her skills, which afforded her the opportunity to be involved in a celebrity-run songwriters workshop. She's building a fan base, or as she calls it, a clan base, via Twitter, YouTube, and other social channels, and she's rightfully filled with excitement and optimism. I hear in her music an acoustic, heart-on-sleeve brand of the indie folk variety. A UK publication recently wrote about her, "If Ed Sheeran and Katie Tunstall had a love child, this would pretty much sum up Lynz's musical style." I forgot to ask Lynz how she describes her music. In any case, I hope you'll enjoy this great conversation with Lynz Crichton. Lynz, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm happy that we encountered one another on the Twitter, as it were. And you are in Nottingham, is that right?
I am in Nottingham, in good old little UK. I always tell people that's where Robin Hood comes from, just in case people only know of London. There are other cities in the UK as well.
Yes, you told me this. Well, I thought it was kind of cute, yes. As you were saying that again, I wonder, there have been movies about Robin Hood in recent decades, but I wondered immediately, I wonder if that's lost on some generations, but I think everybody probably knows Robin Hood even today.
Oh, that's good.
I caught you on Twitter because you had what looks like a great campaign going. I listened to a little of your music, although I confess some of it that I tried to stream on the website did not work for me, and I don't know if that's because of where I'm at. Sometimes that kind of thing happens, but I did get to hear which one I heard first, and we talked a little bit about your bio. I was mentioning, your bio could be nicer, only because I wanted to have more information to be able to find out about you. But I had other ways of finding out about you. But one thing that intrigued me in doing a little homework was the fan or clan club that campaign that you've launched, having people sign up for the Digi download, as you call it. How's that going?
It's going really well. Thank you for asking. I encounter, a lot of people on Twitter. I know lots of musicians use various methods for attracting people to their, what I call clan. My surname is Crichton, so that has roots in Scotland. It's a Celtic thing, and I thought, well, what better to have a clan going, and people can join the clan and get, juicy bits of information on me and sneak peek behind the scenes footage and where I record or when I go to gigs and things like that. So people who join the clan get the best bits of information. But yeah, that's what the clan's all about.
I love it. And I happened to join the clan.
Ah.
And I was wondering, and thanks for mentioning the Scottish roots, I happened to know about the hat that you were married in, which had a little bit of looked like a strip of a kilt on it.
It is, yeah. So obviously the Crichton surname comes from my husband's side, but because his heritage is from Scotland, they all have their own Crichton kilt, Crichton tartan, and all the men at the wedding had this Crichton kilt on. And ordinarily, I know I shouldn't say this out loud, but sometimes I find kilts a little bit dowdy in colour. They can be, They can be quite dark sometimes, but the Crichton Kilt is awesome because it's so vivid blue and it's got red and it's such a happy tartan that I thought, you know what, I'm going to incorporate that into my outfit for the day as well. And I've taken it onto the Crichton clan as well for the music because it's just a bit of fun.
It is. So your husband has Scottish roots, clearly,
Yeah.
and you do as well.
Only through marriage.
Got it. That's all you need.
That's all I need.
What about your parents? What kind of roots do you have? Are they all in England, or?
So they are. Most of my side of the family, well, certainly for the first couple of generations anyway, they're in England specifically, but I do have ginger in my hair, and therefore that also goes back to Celtic roots, whether it be Ireland or Scotland. But I think my dad's side goes back to Ireland for sure, because my grandma Ida was part Irish. So yeah, we seem to come from all over the shop, don't we?
Thanks for mentioning that. And for those of you that have not heard the term ginger for redhead,
yes,
that's what she's talking about.
Oh my gosh, it's such a Brit thing to let everybody over here knows what being ginger is. I'm a wannabe ginger, if I'm absolutely honest. Technically, my hair color is called Titian, which is kind of like a mix between redhead and brown, but I'm proudly ginger as far as I'm concerned.
You want to know what they call it in California?
Oh my gosh, is this rude?
No.
Oh.
Well, do you want to know?
Yeah.
Strawberry blonde.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what I am, strawberry blonde. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's good.
So
it matches the freckles on my face as well.
Yeah, they're great. So Tail, it's fun that I'm talking with you today, A, because you're my first Brit guest. B, I spoke earlier in the week with interviewed a friend named Mara Godo, who is a country singer-songwriter who is based in Nashville, but bounces back and forth between Santa Cruz, California, where she's from, and Nashville, where she's immersing herself in the scene, so to speak. She happens to be doing a lot of interesting things online, through Twitter also, and with Periscope. She's a super Periscope user now, so she gets invited by the folks at Periscope to certain conversations and events, I guess, to give feedback on the platform. So anyway, yeah, I noticed what you were doing with the Digibundle and the Clan fan club. When did you start that particular part of your marketing?
Yeah, not that long ago. I've played music ever since I was a little girl. Life takes crazy paths this way and that way, doesn't it? And so I left music behind for quite a while and did a proper day job. Then when having my children and whatever, left that job to one side and thought, what is it that I really want to do? So I've only really, I would say, got back into music about 18 months ago now, maybe. And it was a friend who knew that I used to play. I used to, play guitar at soirees and, people's houses and things just for fun. And it was, oh, Lynz, get the guitar out, play some songs. And so this very good friend of mine said, please, would you play at our wedding? So I thought, yeah, okay. And literally, as soon as I started practicing for that, and I picked the guitar back up and I thought, what? This is what has been missing for so long. And so I slowly but surely started getting back into writing again, performing again, making songs again, and I then started looking for some help kind of online in terms of turning this into what is a business now. And so I joined Carlos Castillo's musicpreneur course online.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I haven't looked back since then, because all the stuff that's happening with the clan and attracting people to the tribe and sharing the music that way. And so what that really gave me that I didn't have was the pathway to see where this thing could go. I didn't realize what was possible until I started his course, but now I can see that there is a really clear pathway to attracting the fans, finding them in the first place. I live in a rural community in the UK, and I don't really mix with that many musicians or producers or recording studios or whatever. I do a lot of it by myself. And the ripe old age of 30-something or other, I thought, wow, I got 2 kids. I'm this old now, blah, blah, blah. This kind of dream is over for me. Well, it's not, and it's just the beginning. And I just find it so ridiculously exciting that it's possible nowadays.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned Carlos. I'm hoping to have him on the show soon. He's threatening to book a date with me. I happen to be in his community. It was recommended to me by D. Grant Smith, who I believe you are acquainted with also.
D. Grant Smith is an awesome dude, yes.
He's a sweet guy. And yeah, so I hope to have Carlos on here. Happy to hear that you've had such a positive experience. I think that you're the first person, and only because I'm not in the group enough, but you're the first person, that I've spoken to about the course. You've been in there and given some feedback. So that's great. I'm really happy to hear that, particularly since I want to invite him on the show. He seems like, even though I haven't spoken to anyone about his courses prior to you, watching what he's doing, and I'm just reading some of his emails this morning. He seems super genuine, and I see what he's doing. It looks great.
He is 100% genuine. I will admit, I have been involved in 5, 6, 7 online courses because, I need to invest in myself and in this as a business. And Carlos's course is 100% the one that I go back to every week. I check in with him for webinars. I can ask questions to the group. The other musicians in there are super supportive and friendly. It feels a bit like I'm trying to sell it. I'm not. This is the one place that I go to for asking questions, receiving great answers, and ideas of how to move forward with this musicpreneur thing we've got going on here. Yeah, and for those listening, Carlos has a Facebook community group called Schwilly Family Circus, and I'll put it in the show notes, but actually I think you can search it by that, or Schwilly Family Circle, and it is a musicians, songwriters, musicpreneur community. Yeah. Everybody's attaching preneur to things these days. It's funny. But so I want to switch gears now and talk about your music for a moment. Yep. I have heard a couple of versions of The Map You Follow. Great song. And it's going to be part of a larger body of work that you're working on, or have you already released other songs that accompany this, or is it a one-off for now? So The Map You Follow specifically was a one-off that, it's actually a really interesting story behind this, because I wrote that song specifically for my Crichton clan. So I have an EP out at the moment with 5 songs on it, which is on Bandcamp. You can find it through my website as well, but The Map You Follow is not on there because I wanted a track just to give as a kind of a gift to people who were going to join the Crichton clan. But actually, as it turns out, I wrote that song when my grandma passed away, and I was super close to my grandma. She was an amazing lady, and it's, a really special song for me. But recently I was on holiday in France, and randomly I was, as you are in the evening, just surfing the net, seeing what's been happening in the world that day. And this songwriting competition cropped up on my screen, and I said to my husband, wow, look, it's like it's meant to be. There's a songwriting competition, ha ha ha. Let's put a song in. And it didn't want a recording, it just wanted the lyrics. So it was specifically for songwriting as opposed to, send us your songs in. And we had a bit of an argy-bargy or a debate about which song should go in first. But then The Map You Follow, argy-bargy. All right, thanks. That's a new one for me. But we decided to put in The Map You Follow, and lo and behold, it won the whole national competition. Oh, wowza. So I didn't realize at the time, because I'll be honest, I just didn't think it would do anything. I didn't think it would go anywhere. I just thought I'd put my hat in the ring, see what happened. And when I got back from holiday, I had an email from First Direct, which is actually a bank in England or in the UK, and they had teamed up with the MOBO Awards. And all the sort of the winning entries were hand selected by the board of MOBO Awards, and we were invited down to London to go to Metropolis Studios for the weekend for a songwriting masterclass with a lady called Jinjin, who writes for acts like Jess Glynn, Little Mix, Clean Bandit. These are, I don't know if you've heard of these in the States, these are kind of like big acts in the UK. But the point being was, it made me smile, because I just thought, well, I gave this song to my Crichton clan because I wanted to give them something that was really heartfelt. I'm all about making connections with my fans. I don't just want to, attract these people into a clan and then they don't hear from me. I want to be a different musician, and you know, have them as almost like my family, extended family, and get their ideas and input on things. And it made me smile because the song that I gave to them was one that actually got a load of recognition. So I was super happy about that for them.
Wow, that's amazing. And is Jin Jin by chance Jinjin?
She is Jinjin.
She's a singer also from Manchester, right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I figured that some people would be interested in her, so I wanted to make sure I had her details correct. So thanks for sharing that. That's really cool. You know, my friend Mira that I mentioned, you know, she went to Nashville not knowing anyone, but she found a songwriting workshop and has been in some competitions. But interesting that for people like yourselves, you and Mira, that these competitions and workshops are such a huge deal. Now, everyone I've talked to, and I imagine you'll have a similar sentiment. Not that it came to my attention at this time, but there was another gal that I interviewed named Laura Price, who's a blues singer, and she's been nominated for some nice awards and attended some award ceremonies. And she just happened to comment when I asked her about the ceremony or the event that it's such a great networking event. And I assume that the story that you went through in meeting these people was very similar. Can you talk about that? And did you find that to be the case?
Yeah, the weekend with the songwriting masterclass competition, it was absolutely great for networking. There were producers there, there were the sound engineers there was other musicians there was other winners of MOBO Unsung, which are artists that are absolutely up and coming, just, haven't kind of broken through yet, but they definitely will do. And so being in a studio with like-minded creatives like that and just really bashing out songs, like half an hour, boom, one song would come out, then another hour or so, boom, another song. And it was like, wow, this is so cool to be doing this with other people for a change, because as a solo musician, we work autonomously on our own a lot of the time. So it was brilliant to network with those people and just share ideas and collaborate for a change.
I want to make sure I'm looking at also just kind of a show notey thing, but MOBO Awards, MOBO, right?
MOBO, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it stands for Music of Black Origin.
Okay, just making sure.
That's okay. No, that's okay. It's also really interesting because the founder of the MOBO Awards is a lady called Kanya King, and she's an MBE, and she was there as well. So you were talking about networking. I mean, you can't get better networking than meeting people like that over a weekend.
Yeah, well, and for those of you who wondered why I made the funny, I was wondering comment, Lynz is very white, and I saw that in the name of the organization, Music of Black Origin. But I understand it's probably not just about that. But anyway, just wanted to make sure I was looking at the right organization.
No, but kudos to MOBO as well, because they could have quite easily stuck to just MOBO music. But that's why it was such an interesting and great collaboration. I wasn't the only white person there. It was probably about 50-50, but they wanted to collaborate. That was the whole point. It's awesome.
That's exciting. I have to confess that I've not had the opportunities to play with many Black or African American, as we say in the U.S., artists, and it's just because of where I spent my time playing music and the neighborhoods I guess I grew up in and whatnot, and perhaps my own doing of not getting out to the right places as well. But what a neat opportunity for you all to be together. That's great.
Awesome.
I bet it was super fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's going to happen since you had that experience now? You have the EP, you gifted that one, the map you follow. And by the way, did you say that the song, the competition, they wanted a lyric submission only, and is that what they judged the songs on?
Yep.
Wow, that's cool. Interesting.
Yep.
I would have assumed it was the entire composition, meaning the music too. By the way, are you a lefty?
Am I what, sorry?
A lefty. Do you play left-handed?
I'm not a lefty, no.
Ah, okay.
Lots of people pick this up. So one of the pictures is it from the Twitter picture?
I think it's from YouTube, but yes, it could be from Twitter. No, it is from Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting how many people pick up on that. I hate to sort of burst any bubbles here, but it was just artistic license. I had to flip the photo so that I could put the text in the right place against the right background. But it's me, it's not lying or anything.
Well, I was going to go back to the video. I watched a video of you playing, and I didn't notice that, and I was going to go back, but we were already talking, and so I haven't gone back yet. But okay. Just checking. I'm a lefty. I'm a drummer, but I don't play drums left-handed, but I do occasionally try to use my left hand with more success than most.
I kind of eat like people from the UK. I don't switch my knife and fork, which right-handed people tend to do here in this. Well, here in the States. I'm not even in the States. I didn't tell you that, did I? But other than that, my dominant throwing hand is the right, but everything else I do is pretty left-handed, writing and things like that. Anyway, enough.
Where I come from, that's called being ambidextrous.
Yes, well, that's what they say. I'm not completely, like, you can't just flip anything over the other way and I can do it. But yeah. You're a Beatles fan, I also picked up.
I love the Beatles, yeah.
Was that something that you got from home, or?
Yeah, I think I was brought up on the Beatles. So originally I come from a place called Stoke-on-Trent, which is kind of where Robbie Williams comes from, if anybody knows Robbie Williams from Take That. But it's near to Manchester and it's not too far away from Liverpool. And so my aunties grew up in the 60s, obviously around the time of the Beatles, but back in the day, we didn't have the population we have for starters. So when they used to go out on the town, then the Beatles would come and play in town because it wasn't that far away. They would literally they would be in touching distance of where the Fab Four were up the front. They'd go and chat with them after the gig and so on. So yeah, like I was brought up, my parents worked in a computer shop actually in the 80s when I was growing up. And so weekends I would often be, well, I called it farmed out to my aunties, but I would gladly go and play because I had cousins there and stuff anyway. But spending time with them, there was always things like the Beatles playing in the background, and my auntie Pat would always regale me with stories of when she met this person and that person, Mary Quant and miniskirts and all that kind of stuff. So it was quite, colourful stories when I was growing up. So I think that's probably where it all came from. But I am a fan of their music as well because they were legends, of course.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I imagine that first time I've thought this, but you probably hear more of that in England because everyone was very close to it and they didn't get to spend much time. Well, by the time they got to the States, they were already so huge, no one could get very close to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow. And I also made a little note that you're using some Focusrite gear, which has come into my focus, no pun intended, yeah, it was, recently because of some other guests I've had on it, and also because of another podcast that I listen to. Can you tell me about the specific piece of gear? And I ask because, as you may have gathered, I'm trying to help other musicians do things like learn from you as far as how you're marketing, what's working, what's not, and also what are you doing to set up your recording studio at home. So what Focusrite gear are you using?
I am a big fan of Focusrite. I honestly think that they have enabled musicians like me to even do what I'm doing right now. So the first piece of Focusrite kit I started with was actually called Focusrite iTrack. No, I tell a lie, iPocket. Focusrite iPocket. And so I have a smartphone, and you can basically put your smartphone in the cradle of the iPocket, and there's just a tiny little wire, and it turns your phone into a video recorder essentially. So the video is static, but the effects you can have on the sound just mean that rather than it sounding very tinny around the outside, you can make really nice sound recordings with the video. And so you can literally record 1 minute and the next minute you're uploading it to YouTube and you've got some decent YouTube or just decent videos with the sound recording on, which is great. And then from that, because I thought that kit was good, I then wanted to create some more better quality just audio recordings. And so I did a bit of research and found the Focusrite iStudio, which can either plug into iPad, iPhone, your Mac. Obviously, I'm quite Apple-based here, but I just like those bits of kits. So, yeah, that's what I use now.
Is that iPocket, is that actually, maybe it's because it's an older product, but I'm seeing when I search it as iTrack Pocket. Is that the same?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
iTrack Pocket. Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't even heard of those particular products.
The great thing for the iTrack Pocket as well is that it's not, in comparison to having to spend hundreds of pounds, dollars, whatever, it's not a huge expense to just get people started. If sometimes the music comes, you can create the music, you can write it, you can play it, but just, going that next step and just starting to record things and whatever, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at it. It's so inexpensive. That's great.
Super cool. Yeah. Super cool.
And so you're using their iStudio product now?
I am using the iStudio now, yes. And yeah, well, put it this way, my whole EP was recorded on the iStudio.
I'm looking for that one, and I want to be able to reference it. I can't find it. Is that in that Scarlett series, or is that something different?
I think the Scarlett series is slightly different, but well, only very slightly. It's along the same lines, for sure. It's just got, yeah, I think there's only 2 inputs.
Okay.
So your mic input and then your instrument input. But it's super easy to use. The interface on it is great, and you can use it with various different bits of software depending on what you want to use it with, what you're comfortable with. So it's, yeah, it works good.
What about mics? I haven't talked to anyone yet about mics, I don't think. Not on the podcast anyway. What kind of mics are you using?
So the iStudio actually comes with its own mic, which is a condenser mic, I want to say. So if I'm recording at home, I will often use that. But if I'm out and about, then I'll probably just use my Shure SM58.
Cool. Yeah, and I've had people on the show I've got some guys that are recording very high quality stuff, and they're working, recording things for albums, or they're engineering people's albums. So this was nice because now I feel like I'm starting to touch the spectrum. And, one of the selfish reasons I ask about it is I want to start recording at home myself. And so I'm kind of curious what people are using. So thanks for sharing all that.
That's okay.
You have been writing since you were a teen. Did you come from a music family?
Not at all.
What was it that inspired you in the beginning?
It's a good question. Do you know? I don't really know. I think my family was kind of encouraging for me to go out and see bands and things. And so I think from that, I remember feeling like it was, oh gosh, almost like, well, I'm going to say it, like a religious experience. You go to gigs and you see everybody excited by the same thing, getting energy from the same thing, looking up at stage. It wasn't so much that I wanted to be on the stage, although at the time I thought I did. Now I look back and I think, well, no, it's just the creation of that music and giving people that feeling that's the thing that is super exciting. And also, since leaving that old job behind that I was talking about and having my kids and being a stay-at-home mum for quite a few years as well, it actually, well, certainly in the UK, it made me for a little while feel a little bit like I was on the fringes of society, and I wanted to get my voice back. I had opinions on things too, and so this was my way of getting them out there.
So your family were music enthusiasts?
I guess you could say that, yeah. They weren't in the music industry, but yeah, they enjoyed music. But who doesn't?
Well, I was about to say, this is very strange, but I have met people, a couple of friends, I've met people that just don't have the type of appreciation that you're talking about and that I have, or that we have, for music. It's very strange to me. It's probably something I should look into to try and understand. I almost feel like, wow, there's something wrong with you.
Oh.
But anyway, it's interesting. I haven't met a lot of people like that, but I have. It's almost meaningless in comparison to people like yourself or like me.
Wow.
I'm always interested in whether people are self-taught musically or had some formal training. What is your story musically, your education?
Self-taught.
Yeah.
I started on violin, would you believe it, at school. Had violin lessons. Didn't like the teacher, thought she was really annoying, but thought there's something in this music thing. I remember with my first guitar teacher, so I did have a classical guitar teacher when I was quite young, and in my very first lesson, she started to draw out the notes of a song and said, this is your homework, go and read this piece of music, play it, and next week you're going to tell me what it is. And I told her what it was, and she hadn't even finished the first line because, music is about shapes and patterns and whatever. I just did it in my head. And at the time, she kind of looked at me and was just like, how did you even know that? And I was like, well, it just goes da 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 da. It's not very difficult. So from that point, I just thought, maybe music's my thing.
So you had some lessons or instruction as opposed to you did do some in school. Is your primary or post-primary education school music education, was it very limited and then you did some stuff outside of school?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, I learnt, I would say, some of the basic things in school, but the thing with that is it's not the stuff I wanted to do. like
theory. No, I'm just kidding.
no, well, yeah, exactly. It's true. I mean, it's a great foundation. So, I've done various different grades in but man, that did not float my boat. So I just, the rest of it, I decided to do it myself. And no, I haven't had a singing lesson. I'd actually quite like some.
They're very easy to find these days. I'm a little like you, and I didn't do, in my primary school years, I didn't do any music classes, but as soon as I got into college, I took a few classes, but I didn't major in it, and then really a self-taught drummer, and then recently in life with YouTube, you suddenly, instead of just going out to hear people play, suddenly you can see a lot of free content that's pretty darn good. But I encountered an online drum school created by a guy named Mike Johnston, and has the catchy name of Mike'sLessons.com, but he's a great educator, acclaimed as such, and he actually runs a co-host of podcasts with the managing editor of Modern Drummer, who's also an educator. So he's really into it, and the website experience is fantastic. He has tons of content on there for students, including weekly live lessons, which are, as he says, maybe more entertainment than the thing that he really wants us to work on. But I met a lot of cool people. But anyway, the point of my story was just that I have started late in life with, I'm really enthused about learning my instrument and discovering what a vast world any instrument, I assume it's the same for any instrument with all the different styles around the world. You can just, you can spend a year trying to learn one thing without ever touching the different styles there are everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's only so many hours in the day, but if this, these instruments or this voice or whatever is your main source of income, and even your main point of creation and enjoyment and whatever, then we've got to look after them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we should learn how to do that properly, is my thinking on it.
Yeah, and what the heck, I always tell people all we have is time, so why not improve your craft? And it's really made a big difference for me as far as being able to get myself booked as a performer and be known as a musician, just to work even just a little bit on the art of playing drums. And I'm a self-taught singer. That's something else I need to get some training on, get some formal vocal lessons, so I feel for you there. But if you find a good teacher, let me know, because I'm kind of keeping my mind open to doing that in the next year or so.
Awesome.
At the beginning of our conversation, we started talking about marketing, and is it fair to say that most of your marketing chops these days, most of what you've learned has been through Carlos Castillo's, I want to say webinar, that's not the right, courses?
His course, yeah. Yes, the stuff that I have implemented so far, I would say, has come from Carlos. I am in other courses as well, and in due course I will get around to doing those as well. I know each one has got their own benefits and things that I'm going to learn, but for the moment it's the one that has allowed me to hit the ground running straight off, and has, how do I say, harvested results as well. So it's definitely the one I'm trusting in.
Oh, cool. Is it too early to ask you about mistakes or lessons you've learned, or were there things happening before then, or even during the time that you've been working in Carlos's courses that you've already learned in terms of, I would do that differently today, or I wouldn't do that again?
That is a great question, and I'm only sorry to say at the moment I think it probably is too early. I would absolutely tell you with heart on my sleeve if I have any mistakes that I made, especially if it's going to help other people. But at the moment, I feel a little bit like I'm too early in the game to be of any benefit to anybody. So yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that. One of the initial reasons that led me to this podcast, it started with an idea for a book, but I noticed for musicians in the Silicon Valley area of California, San Jose, the San Francisco Bay Area, I had observed a lot of musician friends struggling to get good paying gigs, get the gigs they wanted to have, and I was not having trouble, so I put together this book. But the idea had branched out into, I want to help musicians be better marketers, and it's kind of gone out a little farther at the moment. It's just to try and help them be better at marketing and business and all the other things that help us create music. But that's why I asked the question, and lucky you that you started off with some courses that have helped you so much, because I think a lot of us, I have always been kind of lucky in that I just fortuitously aligned myself with people who understood that that we had to market. And this was, before, I think the only electronic or digital form of marketing we had at the time was email. But I mean, we were doing lots of snail mail and in-venue posters, which are, I've talked about in-venue posters. I think they're still great. And I actually had a guest on the other day who said he's not convinced that snail mail wouldn't still be great, even though he's not doing it. Or actually he has, but I think that was for some theater work maybe he was doing. But today there's so many options for us, and watching what you're doing on Twitter and YouTube is a great example.
It's really interesting you mentioned that about the snail mail, because another thing that Carlos talks about is not doing the same thing as everybody else is doing. So if everybody's doing email and everybody's doing Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and whatever else, there's so much chatter on there. How do you cut through those crowds? Well, you could definitely send something in snail mail and it would stand out because nobody else is doing that now. In fact, I think there was a story recently over here in the UK anyway, where there was a band, and to kind of make a statement almost, they made, do you remember when we used to have cassette tapes? Wow, I'm showing my age now. But anyway, I had cassette tapes, and you used to be able to make your own mixtape on this cassette tape and then give it to somebody you love. Well, they decided to make a mixtape on an old cassette and send it out to PR people and publishers and whatever, knowing full well that it would land on their desk and they'd take out this tape and was like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? But it created so much intrigue and so much there was no name or anything on it. Who has sent this mixtape? Oh my God, that's so retro. That's such a cool idea. And then a week later, the guy sent out, I don't know, a QR code or something to say, hey, if you haven't managed to find a cassette player, why don't you listen to it on the QR code? So it's the same content. But the point was, they did something different to grab attention, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. I'm sure most of them couldn't figure out or had trouble finding a player to listen to it on, but
absolutely. Who's got a tape player these days?
I have some friends that, in fact, the guy who co-hosts that Drummers podcast I mentioned, who's the managing editor for Modern Drummer, Mike Dawson, has been hanging on to a VHS machine because he has some old videos from drummers that he just loves and can't find them anywhere. And he was talking about them the other day, and I was just thinking that's so great that you admit you have that. And,
yeah, absolutely.
But it's also kind of cool. So, in fact, until recently, I had a record player. I gifted it to a friend because my wife and I moved from California to Panama in Central America, so we didn't want to take lots of things with us. So, but those are kind of all the rage and hip and cool these days too, record players. So, all right. So what are your plans? I'm going to back up to the other plans for your next recordings.
So I'm not complaining. I'm super busy right now. I'm buzzing. It's awesome. I've got quite a lot of live gigs coming up over the next few months that are going to keep me pretty busy. But then usually I think things will quieten down a little bit into the new year. So I've got some songs written that I'm desperate to try and make songs out of and do some recordings and play around with them. So I'm hoping in the new year to get another EP out at least. Still keep on attracting hopefully more people to the Crichton clan, and then go forward next year. Well, there's two things I'd like to do. Firstly, house concerts. So in the UK, those are not very widely known. They're not very, people don't really do house concerts over here. So it's definitely an idea that I'm taking from the States, I think. Whether I come to the States and do a house concert tour, that would be amazing, because a lot of my fans on Twitter seem to be in the US.
Ah, interesting.
So I would love to do that. But yeah, house concert tour either in the UK, the US, or in Europe as well. That's no bother. Doing another EP and then moving on, hopefully, to crowdfunding at some point.
The house concert thing is so intriguing to me. I only became aware of it maybe about 3 years ago. I was co-hosting a marketing event for musicians, and we had a guest speaker who was in that circuit. And I guess I'd heard about them before and had heard that there are some, actual people that were in big celebrity status that were doing that kind of thing today. And it sounds pretty cool. I'm sure it can be, and I'm sure it can be okay-ish if not done with the right folks and expectations are not set. But I would be very curious to know how that evolves for you. So I hope that we'll continue that part of our conversation offline, and maybe we'll even do it on the podcast again, and you can report back and let us know how all that's going.
Happily.
So where can people find you online, and where can they be most easiest find your music?
So I think my website is probably a good one to go to, although I think people have a little problem with spelling my name with all this Celtic tomfoolery. So my website is www.lynzcrichton.com. And so you can either sign up to my Crichton class, digital downloads there. You can listen to some of my tracks there as well, see if you like it, buy the EP through there, look at the shows that are going on. And find out what other platforms I'm on. So if you're prefer to be on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it is, you can find me through my website.
And you best spell your name for people that are listening, even though I will put it in the show notes.
Of course. So Lynz is Lyn. Crichton is Crichton. So it looks like Crichton, but it's Crichton, really.
Crichton. And in case the audio recording does what it just did when you're spelling your first name, it's Lynz like zebra, right?
Yep, that's right.
LynzCrichton.com. Okay, cool. I will put it in the show notes. Lynz, I'm so glad we met on the Twitter, and it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. I hope that it will be the beginning of a long-lasting friendship, and perhaps I will see you in the States someday, or who knows, in the UK when I'm there in November.
That would be amazing, and thank you so much for having me. It's been super fun talking to you.
Likewise, I hope that we'll get to do it again too, so have a great one.
Cool!
Hey, this is Robonzo. Thanks so much for listening. Did you know I'm also an author? Check out my book, The Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, How to Get Booked and Paid What You're Worth Over and Over Again, available on Amazon. And the book is also available in audio format as The Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. Check it out wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Last but not least, are you a gigging musician, recording artist, songwriter, or touring professional? Perhaps struggling to get your music out to the world? Struggling to get the gigs you want? Pop over to unstarvingmusician.com and sign up for my email list. I'll send you an occasional email with tips, expert advice, music, musician resources, and anything else I come across that might make your journey better and brighter. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.